Recording in progress.
Welcome everyone this evening. It's good to see you all. And James, so you know, there are about 20 of us in the room. As I was saying, James is having some technical difficulties and is coming to us through his phone this evening. And those of you who have used Zoom on your phone, this is a technical feat. So we're just grateful he's here, and we'll get things started. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Valerie Nye, the library director here at Santa Fe Community College, and I'm glad you're with us this evening as we continue our fall 2025 series. Whether you're returning to one of our readings or joining us for the first time, we really welcome you this evening. RIGEN is a collaboration between the SFCC Library and the Creative Writing Department, and it's designed to celebrate the voices of working writers while also encouraging our own creative practices. Each author in the series joins us for 2 sessions. The first session, like tonight, is a reading and a conversation about work. And the second is a craft-focused session with writing prompts to help spark our own creativity. We'll be wrapping up the series on November 19th with a community reading where you'll have a chance to share any of the work you've created during this series. And we're really looking forward to that evening. We're already beginning to plan our spring 2026 RIGEN series, so keep an eye out for information about that and our continued work on the series this spring. I'd also like to take a moment to thank the SFCC Marketing and Public Relations Department, especially Emily Dravansky and Roxanne Tapia, for their continued support in helping us get the word out about these events. And as always, I'm so happy to be co-hosting tonight with my colleague, Austin Eichelberger from the SFCC Creative Writing Department. I'll turn things over to you, Austin, and Austin will introduce our featured writer this evening.
Thank you, Val. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Glad you're here. This reading is brought to you by the Santa Fe Community College Library and Creative Writing Program. We're thrilled to have you join us tonight for this special reading event. We hope you'll come back to celebrate the power of words and storytelling at our future events. Tonight's gathering is an invitation to those who have passion for the written word. If you've ever dreamed of becoming a writer, whether you'd like to craft compelling fiction, pen evocative poetry, or explore the world of nonfiction, SFCC is awaiting your arrival. In our program, students can earn a certificate or an associate's degree in English language creative writing. The Santa Fe Community College Creative Writing Program nurtures aspiring writers, providing them with the tools, guidance, and inspiration to take their creative endeavors to new heights. We believe that writing is not only a useful and practical skill, but an art form that has the potential to transform lives and connect people across time and space. SFCC's creative writing program is focused on your development as a writer, a reader, and a member of a creative community. Our faculty are published authors and professional editors, and our course offerings include a multi-genre workshop and an internship with the Santa Fe Literary Review, SFCC's in-print literary journal. Related degree and certificate requirements include opportunities to intern with local magazines, newspapers, and publishing houses, explore the world of book arts, and hone screenwriting skills. Students work closely with professors and peers to develop, revise, and publish creative and academic writing in a range of genres and formats. Upon completion, you'll gain the skills and experience to submit a manuscript for publication, pursue a career in editing, or continue your studies in creative writing. You can also now complete the entire program online. Please see the chat for links to our program website where you can see our course offerings for spring 2026, explore the program requirements, find information about the Santa Fe Literary Review, and the Kate Besser Awards, SFCC's very own writing awards. For those of you considering your own creative writing journey, we encourage you to ask any questions you have about the program. Whether you're an experienced writer looking to take a single course or a complete novice ready to explore your creative potential, we have classes and resources for you. In Santa Fe Community College's creative writing program, we believe that everyone has a story and every story is worth sharing. Tell us yours. Tonight, we have the great honor, I am very excited to introduce James Thomas Stevens. James Thomas Stevens is an Akwesasne Mohawk who was born in Niagara Falls, New York, and grew up between the Six Nations Reserve in Ontario, which is the birthplace of his grandfather, the Akwesasne Mohawk Reservation in upstate New York, which is the birthplace of his grandmother, and the Tuscarora Reservation in Western New York, where his grandparents He attended the Institute of American Indian Arts, Naropa University's Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics, and Brown University's Graduate Creative Writing Program. Stevens is the author of 8 books of poetry, including Combing the Snakes from His Hair, Mohawk Samoa Transmigrations, A Bridge Dead in the Water, The Mutual Life, Bull Khmer, Disorient, and The Golden Book. He is a 2000 Whiting Award recipient and a 2005 finalist for the National Poetry Series Award. He teaches in IAIA's undergraduate and graduate creative writing programs, teaching poetry, creative nonfiction, Native American literature, and literature world survey courses. He lives in Canyoncito, New Mexico. Please join me in welcoming James Thomas Stevens.
Thank you, Austin, and thank you, Val, for inviting me to be a part of this series. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah.
It's a little quiet.
It's a little quiet. Okay. I'm holding the phone, which I've never had to use the phone for Zoom, so I'll keep it close as I can.
Thank you. That was good.
Okay. So, Sego Skenagoago, as we welcome people in Mohawk or Ganyangihaga. It's, as I said, a great pleasure to be here. And I wanted to take the opportunity to read actually from some older work, since I rarely get to return to older work. But since it's a newer audience, I'd like to begin with earlier work. And I'll be reading mainly from the book Combing the Snakes from His Hair. Just a little bit of information on that title itself. As many of you know, Mohawk is part of a confederacy of 6 nations and called the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, or as people used to know it, Iroquois, but more and more people are realizing that Haudenosaunee is the proper word. And when our confederacy was united, when the 6 tribes were united, there was one man who was always thought of as an evil man who was keeping the 6 tribes from uniting. And he needed somebody to come and heal him, basically, you know, talk to him and talk him through all the anger he felt. And as we see anger and hatred represented as snakes in one's hair, just figuratively, combing the snakes from his hair comes from the actual occurrence of one of our leaders, Hayanwata, combing the snakes, or, you know, getting the bad things out of this other leader's head. So the title came about because a lot of the book was written shortly after my father passed away of a brain tumor. And I was dealing with the loss of my father and feeling like I needed to comb those snakes from my hair, comb all the sadness and just the feelings of having lost him away. So the title of the book is very relevant to the time period it was written in the mid to late 90s. So I'm going to begin with 2 shorter pieces that are translations, or what I deemed SUI translation. So my idea of this project I gave myself, and SUI translation, was I took the Latin prefix sui, or self, and affixed it to translation. So the thought was that I would take traditional Mohawk, kind of more chants and songs, and translate them into English. So that would be the first step. And then the SUI translation part, which involved translating it into how it was relevant to me personally, is the third. So I'll just read 2 of these short pieces. You'll hear it in Mohawk the first time, then you'll hear the direct translation, and then the SUI translation, which was creating a poem that was relevant to myself based on the translation. So the first one is Canoe Song. Te ohuwaga neni agonweya, gontatya son yonagotatya, wakawe hatya. In English, the canoe is very fast. It is mine. All day I hit the water. I paddle along. I paddle along. And then the personal translation. I am the hull, rapid against your stream. birch beneath the ribs, circumnavigating your body, endless propeller of my arm as it circles to find the flow. I move this way against you. I move this way. The second song is a mosquito song. And while one might wonder why we have a mosquito song, any of you who have spent time in the North Woods, either in Canada or upstate, have had to deal with mosquitoes. So you would sing the mosquito song actually in order to keep your mind off of the fact that you are being eaten alive. So this is where the mosquito song is born. O galiatane to hotalatia to soklolia ne nechi ni hoton ne se ayon ha'a toliwagayon ne se ayon ha'a toliwagayon. The mosquito is bringing a message. He comes to tell us how poor he is. In truth, he is repetitive and brings the same old message. And then the personal poem. A voice returns to tell these things of unencumbered arms, returns to remind me, in truth, I am alone, sleeping through the din of solitude's stinging messenger. So I will move to a series of short poems that, as I mentioned, the title of the book, Combing the Snakes from His Hair, was part of a kind of healing from the loss of my father. And this next series of poems is the loss of my father, but also the loss of different relationships and people that I cared for. And in thinking about how I was going to deal with loss, I turned to a ritual that we have, that Haudenosaunee people have, called the ritual of condolence. And the ritual of condolence itself is in 13 different or 15 different sections. And I kept the original, like the first line of each of those recitation lines of the ceremony as the first line of the poems, or as the titles, I mean, of the poems. So the ritual of condolence, the way that it functions in our community is that society and community itself is thought of as a grieving woman at the loss of one of our members. And there's a word, olenda, which you may have heard. There's actually a Joseph Boyden book with that title. But olenda is a Mohawk word that, for lack of a better translation, means the life force, or like each community is thought of as having a particular level of energy among itself. And when we lose one of those members of our community, that level of life force goes down a little. So you need to do the ritual of condolence ceremony in order to heal the community, the grieving community, and to bring that level back up. So as I mentioned, I'll just read a few from these out of the 15 sections, but I did keep the titles of the individual 15 movements. The throat. Of all that rises from that deep pitcher, throat of the flesh body sorely obstructed. When he died, I went to the river and called him like a man from the field at supper time. And the air was filled with the prevalence of absence. And now you leave, and when I cry, it sounds like pure adolescence, a simple choking and throttling, embarrassing and shaming, red-faced and angered, stroking sore Adam's apple. This knot I feel is the sum of my words collected in this place. So I should also mention, like that title, The Throat. In the ceremony, you're addressing the different things for the mourning community to remember, like to keep our throat open, to not be so overcome with crying and sobbing that we let our throat close. Or another one is the sun, and remembering to look at the sun as it passes every day and not let ourselves be overcome by grief. This next one is called Within His Breast. The disordered and wrenched within bed and breast, emotions thrown off in a night of fevered dreaming, lay tangled on the hardwood among strands of your hair. But today began the work of reorganization, and I broke every cup you ever raised to your mouth. I replaced the heart between the lungs, straightened the spleen, the liver in order, but the heart looked like a queer new building, standing in place of one once familiar, which even now I cannot recall. His son is lost. Outside the screen door, a car stares blindly. Behind it, a house, bent pole for a clothesline. And behind that, another house. And dogs, always dogs. So easy to misplace the movement of the sun. This morning I found it in the woods, aware of its drawing nearer and nearer to me. And I loved you again in every branch against my arm, realizing the city creates an artificial loathing, and you become another thing to get done. But today I burned the houses where they stood and attached the sun in its place again. The woman and warrior. I noted the hair at his nape, turning to oily down, the way the sick transform before diving or taking flight. Preparing a place, he'd smooth the pillow 3 times before resting his head, once for the Father, once for the Son, and once for the Holy Ghost. He only died once, and who can know what it was that she felt waking to a silence only the planets should know, trusting his breath to the becoming. Anything can happen on earth, even insanity. Sleepless for the barking of birds, the dog lays twittering at the foot of the bed. A slow splash caused by the falling away of the mind, the thickening slip of clay from a lake slope. Strangely excited by this unexpected chance to form and reform fingers from this red earth, that when these hands are complete again, the clouds might cease to squirm. And one final from that series, the appeal for the candidate. The place beside me has been caused to be vacant once more by your insistent memory. So I raise you up and name you as the molder of my senses, appealing to our history, which belongs to northern rivers, that you would meet me on the slope with the black strand we've shared, to accept this thinning pouch from my breast and lie eternal at forest's edge. Now I'm going to read a longer piece, but when I say longer, I mean it's long in pages, but not very dense in words per page. And this is actually the first piece I had published. It was published as a chapbook, and I wrote it the year after I graduated from my MFA program. But one of the ways that I typically write, the poems I just read were short poems, and those are not typical for me. I tend to write long poems, and I also tend to write poems that are either what I consider rewrites, like a poetic rewrite of an already existing book, often historical text. And I use a lot of quotations from historical text, or a lot of citations. So as of this date, Tokinish, which I'll be reading, and I'll read it in its entirety. Tokinish is basically a poetic rewrite and a thinking through the Narragansett Dictionary that was written by Roger Williams. Some of you recognize that name, I'm sure, but the founder, considered the founder of Rhode Island. Roger Williams did write the first dictionary for the Narragansett people, and he was a man who was well respected enough for his belief in true religious freedom, that the native people actually warned him when they burned down the city of Providence, so that he and his family would be outside of it when they burned it. So that's one rewrite that I did, was Roger Williams' dictionary, not the entire dictionary. Also a 1913 insurance book, from the Mutual Life of Insurance, looking at accidents, illnesses, and emergencies, and exploring the metaphor between accidents and emergencies that have happened to the continent of North America since colonization. Most recently, my last full book actually is a rewrite of a 1927, I believe, grammar book, and it explores relationships, but using the language of grammar to look at relationships and how they're organized and how they're set up and play out. So this long poem, Tokenish, is the Narragansett word Tokenish means wake him. And I'd written it, as I mentioned, after grad school, when I just spent 2 years in Providence and was looking at Roger Williams' dictionary as one of the main texts. So it begins with a quote. The quote actually just from the dictionary, Tokenish, command, meaning wake him. And then a quote from John Donne's Devotions upon Emergent Occasions. Much comfort is not in much sleep. When the most fearful and most irrevocable malediction is presented by thee in a perpetual sleep, I will make their feasts, and I will make them drunk, and they shall sleep a perpetual sleep and not wake. Tokenish, but yet the body is his book, John Donne. Awakenki sawinki wonkohok, who made you, will silkweke, the book, from the Narragansett. To walk the periphery of islands as if knowing the border of body, to mold the well-muscled curve of your back, mottled of river weeds hanging red on the scarp. Water run down river rock, the comb beneath your arm, skin shining stone as the sun settles into its own dumb orthodoxy. Hemlock shoreline of trunks forced into silt's precision, the vegetable earth on a mineral spine. How to write island, the weighty peninsula of extremities, the red of lichen on a head of stone. Weight is the catastrophe of what we don't know, the unsleeping gravity drawing boat to shore. Okomic noteshim, I came over the water. Mesh namashun homan, I came by boat. Island. Look to a map to prove the concept mute. All waters have a source, and this connection renders Earth island. Is the naked eye observance of a border in every direction the thing we call true? Lack of continuity, the outline of matter? The island of a leaf in a yellow field of corn. The island of a bowl or objects on a table. The island of a word. I call your sleeping body island because I know its white border. Roger Williams set foot in what would become Providence, Rhode Island in 1636. Because he saw water on all sides, he wrongly assumed the land to be island. Although the native he saw standing before him was certainly isolated in isolated surroundings, he did not call him island. Takatosawech, what is your name? Nanishishim, I am alone. To say it requires a boat or bridge to reach a true island is to simplify the question too much. A bridge or boat are simple movement. When the boat is not moving across, it ceases to be boat, and a bridge is forever gerund. Spanning implies movement, as when the bridge no longer spans the gap, it ceases to be that bridge. My hand as it reaches to touch your belly, reaching to island or inland, the shallow dome and the mossy path leading to secret parts. What remains secret in the twofold nakedness of the explorer, the naked find. Pauskesu, naked, pauskwasichik, naked men, niposkis, I am naked. They have a twofold nakedness, first ordinary and constant, when although they have a beast skin or an English mantle on, yet that covers ordinarily but their hinder parts and all the foreparts from top to toe, except their secret parts covered with a little apron after the pattern of their and our first parents. I say all else open and naked. Their second nakedness is when their men, often abroad, and both men and women within doors, leave off their beast skins or English cloth, and so, accepting their little aprons, are wholly naked. Roger Williams. The earth with its skin of beasts, a forested skin of leaf and bark, the live beast itself becoming skin, the naked field opening fertile and fertile forest woodland, the jagged tops of trees mending sky to earth, the interlocking that for lack of separates man from sky, man from man, smooth skins that will not bind. Clay to clay, the coils of a vessel require the scoring of a jagged stick, a twisting trail to secret parts, unclear, most fertile, wild and overgrown, a river flows upward into sky. Sepuo, is there a river? Toyasquanuo, is there a bridge? Is there a bridge to that part of you besides the one I call my own? If in definition the bridge connects two isolated points, then we must decide when I reach to you which body is isolated, or is isolation a mutual thing? If in its isolation there's no recognition of it being alone, no desire to become part to another, who rightfully calls it island? The Indians of Martin's Vineyard, at my late being amongst them, report generally and confidently of some islands which lie off from them to sea, from whence every morning early certain fowls come and light amongst them, and return at night to lodgings which island or islands are not yet discovered, though probably by other reasons they give, there is land. Roger Williams. Return at night to islands, fowl weaving into winds, the wind woven into the quill itself. A bird navigating the water's edge, searching the familiar, a vineyard of grapes, can remind you of a thing you knew on the body, a thing perhaps you tasted once, and through its naming became owner. This is the benefit of exploration. Watop, the root of tree, wampaminish, chestnuts, watahimnish, strawberries, peshuashuish, violet leaves, winominish, grapes. Correlation of recognized sense mapping the body in response to memory and stimuli. the texture of your open eye across my tongue like a new grape with its skin peeled back. A skuta squash, they're vine apples which the English from them call squashes, about the bigness of apples, of several colors, a sweetness. It can remind you of a thing you knew on the body, what you called it in your search for the familiar. Did it relate to a stone, an apple, or element? The basic paradox of language that its inconsistency should make it most useful. I cannot hear of any disease of the stone amongst them. When there is nothing more disparate than stone from disease, the apple from Adam, sin from knowledge. Walk the islands above a waterfall, pressing your heels into the silt. Call the imprint Quanamauksuk, the first that come in the spring into fresh rivers. This might mean lamprey, and there is a consequence. I have learned to say each word with caution. Your body or any body I will not call mine. Wuhok, the body. Nohok, kohok, my body, your body. The first to come found baskets of corn and brought them away without payment. To know the feel and taste of a thing as if knowing implies its ownership. When if both employ the same word, mine. Familiarity with language blinds the user to contradiction. Action leads to reaction and consequence. The next were met and assailed with arrows. The arrow might remind you of birds, and no one can say you're wrong. The feathered fletching and obsidian beak. The history of the word is inseparable from the word, though susceptible to change. As Augustine, words are not adopted by men because they have intrinsic meaning. Rather, they have a meaning because men have agreed upon them. The arrowroot plant, discovered in the New World, was called by the Arawak people aru aru, meaning meal of meals. The process of the unfamiliar change to familiar. Folk etymology refashions the aru aru to arrowroot, denies a word of its infinite history. The shape of a word cannot save itself from its symbol, that is a pointed leaf or a nectar drawing poison. Your demeanor as mirror, vain thought that conscience denies to speech. As history changes, we create the history of change. There is loss, like a building that rebuilds its facade with the age to please the ageless. Growth is replaced by vanity, if vanity is owning. The deeds of transfer of their lands by the Indians in Rhode Island are recorded with the signatures of the sachems appended in the form of their attested marks of a bow, an arrow, tomahawks, and other devices significant of a sign manual. To create sign manuals for a life is a reductive task. They would call it totemic, a history of emotion and actions consumed by the sign of a hatchet. Considering what distinguishes the language of symbol from the language of mineral fact, a circle could mean island or the man who lives alone. Deeds become obscure. Possession is transient. What if no translation exists for the sign? A bow exists for the English as the shape of the bow itself. The Narragansett know the bow as onotok, or a half moon in war. I know you as pleasure and the symbol of its origin. That is not a collective sign. To affix one's name to a thing, a name which is symbol for a life, which acts as the sign of possession in conjunction with the thing. Quote, the Indians of Martin's Vineyard, at my late being amongst them, end quote. Martin becomes victim to word phenomenon as Martha's Vineyard sees the map. Consider the Aru Aru. Beneath your white forearm, the network of vein. Unfamiliar, you say blood path, and I hear blueprint because it suits my cause. To understand your arm as bridge, the impossible engineering written beneath your skin. Island in islands, cells course the channels of a living country, thick with voyage and the shipwreck of intercourse, identical islands on the span of your chest, ringed with riverweed red as rock. Such sinews even in thy milk, and such things in thy words. John Donne. Sinews of the bowstrand, from the beast itself comes its end, its skin retaining the dimensions of the body and the signature of every wound. The scar on your inner thigh is landmark, and I might think I've found my way. Call to you, the way a bird cries out to travel beyond the perimeters of its body. A note from the sycamore belongs to the field. What is the open window but an extension of home? The field as garment echoes reclaiming physical shifts below. Ma'onshish, go slowly or gently. Tagawachuish, go uphill. Rows of corn in insistent precision mold the furrow at the forehead of every work. At night, to turn and return, I mold the curve of your back, garment gone and naked to the sky, to the earth spinning gravity, your limbs in close around me. The field and its touch familiar surround you. The smell of warm straws and a light summer mold. Then comfort comes in recognition. In the billowing of thunderheads, to recognize a hair, a face, or an event delights the viewer through familiarity. Of taste or touch, the fields are flickering with the knowledge of likeness. The taste of salt on the inside of your arm calls to voyage. The shimmering bow as the ship comes in. The thrill of recognition, what cheer netop, is the general salutation of all English toward them. Netop is friend, netempok, friends. They are exceedingly delighted with salutations in their own language. Every translator has to be two people. An Indian assigned a mark on paper, a berry-stained moon on a birch palimpsest. How to paint the name of the moon, which is Manunok, or the moon itself, which is Nanapashit. The hemlock on the shoreline gives up its flat needles to a vertical line topped by a sphere. Line river on a map and the loss of its scent, the gravel sound of suckling after the surge. To make maps of a lover's body is the sad border of a shoulder playing harbor to the head, not to be reconciled by a thin black line, or even the broken line that allows the shifting border, the dumb index that lacks reflection on the eye. The compass rose has lost its magnet, where north is not north, but the head on its side. There is a space between your torso and mine where travel goes. The charting of my course is instinctual, but I give destination no name, as the name for you lacks more than its symbol. You are an island or the name of an island. A name is a bony skeleton with angles protruding, a ruinous anatomy like the word for swamp, mountain, or fish, awaiting the mind to return its mineral matter. Your body doesn't wait for a name because it has one in the circumference of my arms, where only the skin can speak it. Nepok, the blood. Wonichke, the hand. Wonuks, the belly. Maponok, the breast. Apome, the thigh. Sichpuk, the neck. Wotone, the mouth. Wuskataka squash, the eyes. Miskatok, the forehead. The tension surrounding your eyes at the moment life comes to a head. Nothing planted or harvested but the winnowing of a day's events. Bark to basket, gathering parts. Island among islands, archipelago. Such voyages, such peregrinations to fetch remote and precious metaphors. Such extensions and spreadings, such curtains of allegories. Allegory of conquest, the shipwreck of intercourse. Alone the bloody tenant is left to translate history without voice, a language inherent. Thank you.
Thank you so much, James. That was incredible. Whoop. Did you want to take any questions from people, if people have them?
Sure, happy to.
Well, people can put their questions in the chat or feel free to just speak up. I can actually start us off here. James, could you talk to us for half a sec about image webs in your work? I noticed that there were a few images or analogies that got used multiple times that you sort of echoed later on. And I was just wondering how you approach that.
Sorry, it's hard to hear, a little bit hard to hear for some reason, but I think I got the question about imagery. Was there like a specific image that you were thinking of that you picked up was repeated?
There totally was, and now that you've asked me, they've gone right out of my head. There was one in that poem that you finished with, or I remember one, A Man as an Island. That was one that sort of echoed through more than once. So I was just curious about that, sort of how you approach that.
I guess, I mean, part of having attended Naropa Institute back when it was still Naropa Institute and not Naropa University was that meditation was completely focused on, and now that it's a university, they can no longer ask people to meditate, where before it was a requirement. But we were basically, told that we should be able to sit and meditate with any one thing, and in time find the metaphor and how it affected us and why it was important in the world. And with this poem, I mean, island was the main meditation. And because I was living in Rhode Island, which we know is not an island, but Roger Williams did actually believe at first that he had landed on an island, because looking around him, he saw rivers on at least three sides and just was thinking, okay, it's an island. I mean, obviously thinking of No Man as an Island, and all that Roger Williams mentioned and the place that I was living, it got me thinking mainly about, people talk about an island as being alone, but there's a page in there about, like, if one doesn't think of themselves as alone, who decides if one reaches out or feels like they have to reach out. So just the image of the island combined with native words that had to do with the island, just became more of like a mantra. And it's funny, I'm not Buddhist by any means, but having gone to Naropa, the meditation and the I think of refrain often as mantra. So I think that island showed up in there specifically so often because it was more of a mantra to me.
That is so interesting. Thank you. Sorry, I was just writing down refrain as mantra. Oh, I love that. I love that. Does anybody else have any other questions? I see that Serena in the chat said, my God, James, you write intimacy unlike any writer I've read. And I agree with her completely.
Thank you, Serena. Okay, let me see if I can read that. That chat disappeared as quickly as it showed up. Can you read that chat?
Yeah, I can
Austin?
read it too. The
Okay.
question is, with your experience of living both in the Northeast and the Southwest, have you noticed changes in your themes or perceptions?
Probably not. I mean, I always write very history based and involving research. So the other piece I'd been considering reading that also involved a lot of quotes from research, historical research, was more Santa Fe centered. I mean, I came out here as an undergraduate in 1989. So I've been here. I came here for school and ended up never leaving and then replacing my own professor. So it's definitely influenced the landscape that I write about and the scenery, but I guess probably not perception so much of the way I think about things. I mean, I guess the other thing about Tokenish that I just read from was another big theme in it. Maybe the main thing, even more so than Island, was ownership. And it was me thinking about colonization and discovering new lands and how they really mirror new relationships, how we meet someone new. They're exciting, they're unexplored, they're undiscovered, and how quickly we employ that word mine and start thinking of, just like colonizers with land, it's my new land, it's my this, it's my that. And I often say to students, like, I feel like I write to remind myself not to allow history to repeat itself. I started to say the other piece that I was thinking of reading was ostensibly about, I mean, it uses the letters of Mozart, Wolfgang and Leopold, father and son. And it was thinking through another thing for my life, which was having had an Austrian partner for many years and whose life was heavily like around classical music and Mozart and all classical music. Um, and learning that kind of like the things we learn for love, basically, kind of. But then looking at music and how it compared to Native American music and how so many people call Native music just kind of barbaric and basic, just a drum and voice, whereas I'd begun researching because of where I am and the scenery around me. I'd started researching a priest named Peter of Ghent, um, who, when he came over here to the Americas, decided that music was the thing that was going to colonize the natives more than anything. And he had masses and things translated into Nahuatl, and these indigenous choirs formed in Mexico that, according to all accounts by the Europeans there, rivaled any choir in Europe, and how native people would walk for however long, 8 leagues is, he says, up to 8 leagues just to hear a choir or polyphonous music. And so the imagery in that is definitely not the islands and rivers and bays of Rhode Island, but very much the gardens. There's also a lot in it comparing musical scores to the way that gardens are planted, how we can plant a garden and very carefully plan what flowers where, but depending on a late frost or a heavy rain, that's going to change our score of our garden in the same way that we can write a music score, but we can't absolutely dictate how it's going to be played. And then tying that to history, the same with history, it plays how it plays. But definitely the imagery did change with having been out here now for so long, but not really the topic. It's still thinking through history and how history relates to personal decisions I make about either relationships, friendships, whatever it happens to be.
We have another question. Do you dream in Mohawk or English or both?
Do I what?
Do you dream in Mohawk or English or both?
No, I definitely dream in English. I mean, English, it's Mohawk. I mean, like every language, indigenous or any language, they change so quickly and adapt. I mean, that when I return home, I mean, for one thing, without a language nest to speak the language in, it's very hard to keep up with language. Out here, I know two other people that know some Mohawk, and we say those, we greet each other and things like that in Mohawk, but I don't have like a language base. And every time I return home, I realize there's more words that just didn't even exist when I left to come out here at 19 or 20. So like the first time I remember that happening, I returned and I heard a word that I could tell it meant something about a black box with pictures in it, but I wasn't sure. It turned out it was a VCR player, and that wasn't even a thing when I had left home in 1989, or not that I remember. But also they keep up with current slang and translate current slang. So it's a very quickly changing language, and I definitely don't dream in it or I mean, there's a lot of times when I ponder things in it and start like just thinking of the word for something and then think through it, and it may end up being a poem. Um, I often talk about or give talks or lectures on, I mean, it's the trite thing to say would be that what's lost in translation, but I just always feel like I'm mourning what a word really means and how it gets translated, and including like my own Mohawk name, which is Alonhiotas. And growing up, I was told that by my grandmother, my Doda, who did speak Mohawk as her first language, I was told it meant those fingers of sunshine that come through a cloud, those very hard rays. So that's when people would ask me, what does it mean? I'd say the rays of sun through a hole in the clouds. But it wasn't until I dated somebody who spoke the language and who taught the language that I had asked, like, what does it really mean? And I feel like that's been a main refrain in my life to my grandmother or family members is, what does it really mean? So I know, like, if you say, what does the Hontanegel mean? They'll say it means rabbit. What does it really mean? It means he has two ears side by side. So there's always this like kind of hidden meaning that gets lost in that translation. But with my own name, come to find out, and this went through many elder speakers to try to figure it out exactly what it meant. And whereas Western view of those sun rays is a downward motion from the sky, in Mohawk, what it translates into a place where the sky can go up. So those beams of light as we see them are actually more like a kind of escalator, to make it a little weird, where the sky has a chance to go up even higher. So now if people ask what is the naming, I don't really mention those sunbeams. I say it means the place where the sky can go up, which is literally what it means. So I'm often thinking of our language, just one word will set off a whole thing for a poem, just thinking about how much more beautiful it is and how, I mean, we could translate every word like that when someone asks us the translation as like a nowala. I don't have to say turtle. I could say it means he carries his house. But the quick thing that we do as translators is just saying like, well, it's a turtle or it's a rabbit or whatever it is. So it influences my writing in that way, the language.
Those are really beautiful explanations. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Sure. Thank you.
Have a couple more minutes if there are any other questions. I know James is planning a really great session for us next week, so I hope you all return for that, and we'll have more information in that via email that will be coming out in the next week, so please keep an eye out for that. Any other remarks, Austin, before we sign off for the evening?
I think that's it on my end. Just thank you so much for being here, James. Your work is always so phenomenal. It was just an honor to get to hear you again. Thank you. I've missed your work.
Thank you, Austin.
Lots of
I hope I
clapping.
wasn't making anybody I hope I wasn't making anybody sick with the movement of my camera, but if I don't hold it in one hand, then for some reason the microphone gets covered.
It was just all great, James. No worries on that. We just enjoyed hearing you read your own work. I think that was the most important part. So thank you so much for sharing it with us this evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you and everybody else next week. Lots of thank yous in the chat.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for showing up.
Thanks, everyone.